everybody, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Taylor Rockwell. It's transfer window review time. We've got superlatives and almost certainly a lot of in-the-weeds chat about roster construction. Jeff Ruder, are you ready to get your rankings on now that the secondary transfer window has closed shut?
Let's go. It's so interesting because like a lot of this summer talking about transfer windows has been like, are they working as designed? Do we need to move the entire league's calendar so transfer windows are more interesting? But we had a very interesting transfer window, and I'm grateful for it.
I'm grateful for usages of but low. Rounding out the crew today, a man who perseveres despite the fact that we now exist in a Lutzless MLS world. It is Joe Lowry. Joe, thank you for wearing the black armband to commemorate the sacking of Lutz Pfannenstiel.
Yeah, it's just off camera for those who are those watching. This is a big day for all sorts of reasons, primarily because Taylor has just used the full name of the transfer window, the secondary transfer window. Jeff is dropping low. I didn't realize this was going to be a formal episode, so I'll now be referring to you as Mr. Taylor Rockwell and Mr. Jeff Ruder. This feels like it fits very well. The big news outside of the transfer window is what you referenced there, Taylor, is that Mr. Lutz Pfannenstiel has been let go by St. Louis City. This happened on Monday after they had a very quiet window. The timing of it seems a bit odd to me that you let Lutz go through the window. Maybe ownership was like you needed to have made 4 moves in the summer window and that you didn't means that you're gone. Either way, it feels like, and I'm never rooting for someone to lose their job, it feels like this was a natural moving on point for St. Louis City after 2023. Where St. Louis won the Western Conference and got blitzed in the first round of the playoffs and were bounced. They, seems like, and Lutz, as a key part of this, over-indexed on that roster that had rotten underlying numbers all season long. It was just a weird team. Like, it's not even just the data nerds who saw it. If you watch the games, you saw how weird that whole season was and how unsustainable it was. And they didn't make meaningful changes to the roster, really, from 23 to 24 and from 24 to 25. And the result is they're a bottom 6 team in the Supporter Shield standings last season. They're trending to be even worse than that this season. It was time, and I think it is a necessary change. There's a lot to do for St. Louis now. A sporting director to hire, a coach to hire, a roster to overhaul all in the winter or maybe leading up to the winter. Yeah, they're going to be busy. They're going to be a team to watch for sure.
Is that essentially just a full-on reset then? Is that maybe an admission that not necessarily that they got it wrong, but that they didn't get it right, I guess?
Yeah. Go, Jeff.
I would say so, because I think that speaking with people who interact with St. Louis in sort of a like brokering transaction side, you can get a sense when ownership wants to play a part in soccer decisions, right? And sometimes it comes out really nefariously where Bill Manning is like Transfermarkt is this wonderful scouting tool and y'all should use it. I don't know why everyone isn't, but introducing these 2 very lavishly paid Italians, right? So there's like that side of the scale, and then there's the one where they're like super hands off. We brought in Tim Bezpachenko to let him cook, and we're going to let him cook, right? St. Louis was much more of the hands-off, we're going to let him cook thing, but the assumption was that the ownership group didn't really want to stick their neck out because of a lack of experience historically in soccer. And so when you bring in someone whose CV always leads with was the first person to play soccer on every continent professionally, right? Like that is going to come in with that cachet, and then obviously having worked in the Bundesliga as well, I think it's going to be a restart because I don't think that there's much internally. Now look, there's like John Hackworth is there, who's been a holdover since before the debut. He's going to be, I guess, sort of the interim and also applying for it if he'd like to. In the club's interview that the club's president did with Paul Tenorio at The Athletic, talking about how Hackworth could become a candidate for that opening. But what's really interesting to me, though, is that ownership's naivety really shows with the timing of this. Because you let him go like 2 days after the window closed, which like you will look at like if you don't understand like the machinations at play here, you'll look at and say like, okay, well, he can see it out, kind of lame duck presidency. It's a natural conclusion, and we will have a smooth succession, a seamless transition of power, and we will do the interview process and we'll be ready for the winter. Well, you need this time to actually assess the roster. You need this time to actually build it forward. The last time we've seen a team fire a general manager or sporting director the week of the secondary window closing was when FC Cincinnati parted with Gerard Nijkamp in 2021, their 3rd season in Major League Soccer, when they were on a crash course to their 3rd straight wooden spoon. Now, that's worked out really well for them.
Yep.
So take heed in that. But right now, that's where we're at. St. Louis has been operating very quietly, like FC Cincinnati did in its first 3 years, in the sense that the on-field product never really matched up to the lip service that they were giving. The atmosphere was fantastic, and frankly, the on-field product did not give the fans what they deserved, and there is reason for optimism given the timing that they can get it right. The big question now will be, do they have the right personnel on hand to get a successor who can get them onto a modern FC Cincinnati trajectory instead?
But in my mind, that entire club was sort of, at least the talking points were very much like, Lutz is coming in, he's got this pedigree, he's got this experience, he has this international Rolodex, he's going to be the guy who knows everything and finds everything, he's going to help us identify a style of play. They talked at length about how they went through like 50,000 coaches to find the exact right coaches they wanted. It feels like there has been a methodology in place that has largely been rooted around Lutz Pfannenstiel. So I'm a little confused as to how they move forward once you remove that whole identity. And maybe that is the confusion that will kind of reign supreme in St. Louis for the rest of the season.
Well, I don't think it's confusing. It just is exactly what you asked before, Taylor. Is this a reset? And the answer is yes. Like this is a club reset where the man who picked a big chunk of the roster and who oversaw the sporting side of the club, which includes the tactical approach, is gone. And now you are trying to grapple with, do we still want to be a pressing team? Well, we haven't really been that quite as much this year across managerial turnover, and is that still something that we care about, or do we want to be something else? And also, we need new and better players regardless of the system that we're using. So yeah, I think it's very clear that this is a reset, and that could look like being a tactical reset, or ownership could say, hey, we look at Philadelphia and Colorado, and we see that teams that don't want to play with the ball can get players for cheaper, and so we're going to do that. So you have to play this way. That's totally possible as well. But really, yeah, it is going to be a big change across potentially multiple facets of the club, even outside of just the roster.
Well, parting ways with Lutz is a big move, but I would not say it's the best move, at least not best move of the transfer window. We are going to talk about best moves, best windows, worst windows, best signings, best future signings, best win-now signings, lots of different categorizations of signings. But let's start off, generally speaking, with best window. I feel like there are 4 teams that are going to kind of be commonly discussed in this segment.
Ooh, interesting. I want to hear your list,
maybe 5,
Taylor.
Maybe 5.
I want to hear your list of 5. Do you want to give us your list of 5, or do you want Jeff to give us his number 1 first?
I will give you my list of 5. I think my number 1 breaks with what I have seen as being the number 1, but my number 1 is Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati had a very smart window. I think the reintroduction of Brenner gives them a much stronger attack. The hype around Cincinnati, especially from like Cincinnati bloggers and podcasts and the like, seems very, very high now with the roster build they have. But I had it as Cincinnati, LAFC, Toronto, Vancouver, Inter Miami.
Nice.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I want to say Brenner, like, this isn't a category we had, but, like, in the heyday of Sky Sports' deadline day coverage, like, Brenner felt like one of those moves where it's like, we have just spotted this guy on the premises. We did not see this coming, but wow, this is going to carry us for the next 2 hours of coverage. Like, it was genuinely a shock to see Tom Booger, put that out there. And I loved every second of it. My favorite window, I think it's, look, I don't think that there were many clubs that really made or broke their MLS Cup candidacy for this year, but I think LAFC really put the Western Conference on the back foot for like the rest of the season with their window. I love what they did. And yeah, it's easy to love it when you've got Sung Hyung-min coming in, right? But like it's what they did around Sung Hyung-min with 4, I would say, really crucial moves that are going to make that one better. First, defensively, they needed extra cover after Aaron Long's injury. They brought in Ryan Porteous, who we talked about a few weeks ago, just like a really good kind of stay-at-home defender, has done the job at the championship. He'll be good for it here, looks like. Matthieu Chenois comes in, another versatile option. I always butcher his last name. Sorry, Canadians, if I did so again. But the one that I'm actually really excited about is the loan from Brighton for Andrew Moran, who played last year as kind of a right-sided number 8 ball progressor for Stoke City in the championship and played a lot of minutes. So he's coming in really freshly seasoned. He can do that line-breaking ball that Son Heung-min needs, that one that just kind of like rolls through the channel and past the back line, and it looks like every defender is like shoot like their Roomba's getting away from them. They opened a door and they wanted it to finish this room. Well, that's the kind of speed of ball that he needs, because then he can collect it with his feet rather than trying to chest it down and have better control over it. And Andrew Moran, from what I've seen in the tape, can play that ball, and I don't think that Timmy Tillman was going to be able to play that ball for him. The other thing I really like was getting out of Senga Zunder. It just was not working for them. I know that with him and Dillerson, they had a lot of those kind of escape doors built into these deals, but that's why you do it. If you're not confident with more of those gambles, then you just go bring in Son Heung-min. I don't know why every other MLS team isn't doing this.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. LAFC is my pick as well, although, Taylor, I do want to get back to Cincinnati. And before I go into my LAFC thing, because we talked about them a lot, I also want to say your list of 5 is excellent. There's really only one team, I think, on that list that I would quibble with slightly, and that is Vancouver, just to stop on them for a second. I don't know how much better Vancouver got in this window. I think they got a little bit better, but am I 100% sure in my heart of hearts that Thomas Muller is an upgrade on Pedro Vite? No, I'm not. I'm like 60% sure. And I think Muller has been quite good for Vancouver so far in his 130 minutes that he's played across 2 games. Scores a penalty on Roman Berkey after that controversial penalty call in the 3-2 win over St. Louis on Saturday. That moment was epic. Sorry, St. Louis fans, I guess cover your ears. I don't know. You got change to be happy about. You're fine. And I think Muller is starting to orchestrate a lot of their possession play. You can see him pointing and moving things around, like kind of on the field as a manager, effectively. And I think he's looked quite good, but I'm just not all the way there. Like, I think Muller is going to be a good addition. Is he a meaningful upgrade on Vite? I'm not so sure. They also chopped and changed at center back some. I think they probably got a little bit better in that part of the field, but it was also, like Jeff mentioned with Ryan Porteous, also part need-based because Ranko Veselinovic is out for the year. So I think Vancouver are looking slightly better now than they were before, but not in a blindingly obvious way to me, personally. I think they had a good window. Did they have a top 5 window? I'm not so sure. To go back to LAFC, I think Jeff did the nice thing for our audience by trying to avoid talking about Son Heung-min more, and I don't need to do it a lot more than that, but he's the real reason why they had a great window. Like, they didn't really need Matthew Choinière prior to Igor Jesus going down with some sort of injury that looked pretty bad in their draw with Dallas over the weekend, so maybe they actually did, as it turns out, but not really. They did need a center back in Porteous. It's not a super sexy move. Moran, I am less optimistic than Jeff that he's going to see the field under Steve Cherundolo, because Cherundolo has a lot of attacking options already, and doesn't put playmakers in central midfield. So, right. In theory, I love that move. On paper, I'm not so sure about it. Son is the best player who joined an MLS team in the summer. That seems very clear to me. He is busy on the field. He's getting on the ball. He's influencing the game. It looks like LAFC are starting to figure some of that stuff out. There's still the tactical concerns that we've talked about bordering on ad nauseum now, so I'm going to cut this here. But he has been really good. LAFC set the standard in MLS for retooling their roster through the transfer market. It's that simple with LAFC. Can we dip into Cincinnati for a second, Taylor? Because I want to bounce this back to you.
I will say we can.
Okay.
I wanted to say I think the reason why I have not been didn't have LAFC 1 the way you both did is because I think a lot of the coverage I've seen has been they made their roster way better. They now have a comprehensively stronger team. They signed Son Heung-min. He's going to be really great. He's the best. And it was 95% of the write-up was about this one signing, and it felt to me a little bit like maybe those other signings weren't as important. I mean, obviously they're not as important.
MLS
as signings
coverage in 2025.
One of the biggest players.
For sure.
But I think you all have done a good job of outlining why the other signings do theoretically make them stronger unless Steve Cherundolo decides not to play them where they need to. So, well argued to you both. Now let's talk about Cincinnati.
There is just the minor also Olivier Giroud parting ways thing, which also this whole window doesn't happen if that doesn't. I don't think so.
It is
that has to be part of consideration.
I didn't think about that.
It's worth noting LAFC. They're going to go with that 2DP 4U22 model for the rest of the season. I would expect that to change in the winter if they can go out there and get a signing they really like, or maybe they'll stick with 2 DPs as they have done at times and wait until the summer. They're going to be in for another big piece, whether that is a year from now, whether that is 4 months from now, I don't know. But yeah, LFC set the standard for exactly what I said. FC Cincinnati, I have down in this category as a sort of an honorable mention for a really good window, but really I have them down with an asterisk because I have them in the window I think I like, but I'm also really unsure of category. They added a ton of talent. Taylor, you mentioned Brenner. I think that's a great addition for them. He's produced in this league. They've got an option to buy on the short-term loan as well. So if he shows out between now and the end of the season, and maybe there's a bit of an attitude change for Brenner compared to how he left Cincinnati, I think he could very well stick around and be a part of this team if the chips fall in the way that they need to. Ender Echenike, I really like what he's brought as a U22 initiative attacker. They've done a lot of good stuff. Don Marchuk coming in on loan with an option to buy as a U22 from RSL is a fun, low-risk piece. The reason I am unsure of them is DeAndre Yedlin leaving this team.
Yeah.
And I am not, at this point, DeAndre Yedlin's biggest fan. I don't think he is a top 5 right back in Major League Soccer. But he is a solid, reliable presence for an FC Cincinnati team that I think still needs that, especially with Obina Nwobodo out of this team, injured at the moment, and I don't know what his return timeline looks like, but he's missed some time. Cincinnati have let in some goals. Cincinnati are still not creating the types of consistent chances around Evander that they need to. We talked about Cincy last week, right, and how kind of weird they are. I am worried about the defensive drop-off in particular that comes from taking DeAndre Yedlin out of this team and putting in any of their other options at right wing back. Like, who's going to play that spot? Is it Alvis Powell in the year 2025 playing big games for you? Yeah, it's very scary. Is it Don Marchuk, 20-something young Polish international who never broke into the RSL team? Is it Luca Oriano? I think we've tried that at this point. Is it Echenike? I don't think so. I'm not sold by any of those options. They are all incredibly leaky and uninspiring to me in that spot defensively. I'm worried about that side of things while also recognizing, and this is, Taylor, where I completely agree with you, the fact that they added so many dudes in this window who can contribute to a good soccer team is impressive. Like their roster, you go through and look at their roster profile, it's 2 DPs and then like 100 TAM players. The depth that Chris Albright and the front office have built into this team is astonishing. Like they are incredibly deep and varied in their profiles. The thing that I think they are missing is like someone who is a reliable player in exactly that DeAndre Yedlin spot. Yedlin wanted a new deal. Cincinnati gave him an offer. Wasn't the offer that Yedlin wanted. RSL were willing to give him more money. That's how that all went down, and that's understandable. Like, I get it. Since he did right by the player, Yedlin wanted to move on. RSL got a good player they can use. This sort of works for all parties, except I'm worried for Cincinnati in the short term of that spot. So maybe I'm overthinking this. It's probably not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but that situation at right wing back, which is like, one of your 10 outfield players that matters for a team pushing for trophies.
It's comfortably among your 10 most important outfield positions.
I would say top 10 most important outfield spots. Very much so. Maybe 10th out of 10, but it's on the list, Jeff. It's a great point. That's why I'm a little unsure of Cincinnati, but I still think they did a lot of clever stuff this window.
I like to think that DeAndre Yedlin is just continuing his inevitable return to Seattle. Like he goes,
Go West, young man.
He goes to England, then he comes Miami, now Cincinnati, now RSL. Next season, this time, I feel like he's playing for Seattle.
You're onto something there because he's gone up and to the left with one move and then down to the left. So up to the left, the pattern. He's not going to Portland.
Hey, do what you got to do, young sir. Any other nominees, like honorable or otherwise, for best window?
But I'm putting a pin in it because I got cute and I changed one of the categories on the fly. Just one word in a category. So I will save my other option, but there's a window that I love with a capital L that we haven't even mentioned.
Should we talk Toronto before we go to break, or should we leave them for a different category as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to start it's Robin Fraser's time now era in earnest, and I think it's really smart. Like I look again, like the Giroud departure from LAFC, sometimes you need some attrition before you can move forward. And having Insigne and Bernadeschi, there's some reports coming out this week that Bernadeschi made it a really hostile locker room environment. There was some reporting that was done by a few of my now ex-colleagues at the time at The Athletic during their second season about what the atmosphere was like in the locker room and all the vape clouds and taking training sessions off and stuff like that. So it was never going to work with them. They moved on from that early ahead of time, which is great because it gives them more time to do this sort of reinvention. And they're pretty much three ways that you can truly succeed in a summer window in Major League Soccer that I've seen. One is that you do the Son Heung-min route, which is we brought in a very good player at the end of the European season who was needing a move at the time, and now he's going to make us much better immediately. Yay, congrats, you did good business. The second one is probably I'm not going to take the bait, and I think we've got something special here, and we're going to sit, and we are going to fortify, and we are going to make our players feel confident that we back them, and we're going to trust the process here. And there were a couple of those teams that had the window like that, where they were very quiet. They didn't make a lot of moves, certainly didn't sell players who maybe could have been. And then the third one would be this year's kind of cooked, isn't it? So let's just go ahead and let's thin out the squad of like guys with value, so trade them for some allocation money or move them on to other clubs, and let's bring in a couple of crucial pieces who can be building blocks for, in this case, 26 and beyond, and we'll go from there. And that's the kind of window that Toronto had. And I thought that was a really smart way to play it. Obviously, the Georgi Mihailovic, we talked about it for over an entire segment. Joe and I are absolute sickos. But like with that move, usually you will see, and I was on Lobbing Scourgers with Ari Lillenwell recently, and we were talking about how Seattle Sounders fans don't like that they don't make big signings from outside the league, that they're getting Jesus Ferreira and they're getting Paul Arriola and stuff like that. And like in most leagues, you see it as wise business operation to go from within your own league, because it's like they've done it here, right? Like Evander was such an important signing for Cincinnati because he had succeeded in Major League Soccer. Part of it, like they were able to project that he could do what he's doing now, right? And I think that with Georgia, you do get some of that. I think that you have that sort of dependability, and I think that there's more value in that than maybe some give credit to. But there also was just generally like I really love, it's under my under the radar category, but like getting Jose Cifuentes, very fun. Like very, very fun. Could be like Bradley-esque, in the sense that they brought in Michael Bradley before Josie Altidore and Sebastian Giovinco. And so he helped show, like, this is what good midfield play can do for your team. And then things started to get better. And then they, like, were able to build into something else under Greg Vanney. So, you know, I'm hoping that they can have some of that, but I really like the work that Toronto did.
Yeah, Toronto are number 2 on my list after LAFC. I think they had the next best window. I think Cifuentes is a superstar in this league. Mihailovic as well falls into that category. They cleared a bunch of cap space. I really, really like what Jason Hernandez did.
All right, there we have it. So those are some of your best windows. My number 1 was anybody but DC United, so congratulations to you all for labeling a few more specifically. We're going to talk a little bit more DC United, I think, when we get to worst window. First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back soon. Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show. We've talked the best. Let's talk DC United. Who had the worst window? Joe Lowry, we'll start with you.
Yeah, DC are not my top choice for this, although they are number 2 on my list. My top choice, the New York Red Bulls, who added spare parts in this window, left a DP spot open for the trophy push. This is an unserious team. Now I want to preempt this because maybe there's another team you're thinking about in the Eastern Conference who are fighting in a very similar spot in the standings as the Red Bulls, who also did not add a DP this window when they could have, and that's the Chicago Fire. They went 2-4 instead of 3-3 with their roster profile for the rest of the season. They're also fighting for that playoff spot. But I actually believe in Chicago as a project, and I believe in their business this summer. Joel Waterman's an upgrade on Carlos Duran. Berhalter's U22 picks have worked out well, and they grabbed a U22 left back in this window. Andre Franco, I like his profile as a Porto cast-off. That's generally a pretty good sign that you have some skill in one way or another. It's easy to see an upward trajectory for the Fire. So I don't mind them keeping a little bit of powder dry for the winter. I don't see an upward trajectory for the Red Bulls. They are stuck in mediocrity without roster planning or organizational planning that inspires any confidence whatsoever. They have completely changed their tactical identity, not for the better, at least not for as long as their squad is the definition of average. And that's what it is right now. Taylor, you deserve credit. Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting has hit. He's been a very productive striker in Major League Soccer. He's had his moments of frustration, but he's been good. Emil Forsberg is underperforming. As far as I'm concerned, he was last year too. But they have some pieces, the Red Bulls. But they left that last spot open in the DP spot. They were looking for Timo Werner. They tried to take a bite out of that apple back in the winter. Didn't succeed. They went back in the summer. They devoted all of their effort and time and energy into signing Timo Werner. It was Timo Werner or bust, and they didn't get him. And even if they got him, was he going to be an impactful player? I don't know. The Red Bulls consistently underwhelm in the transfer market. They do not, their ownership or their front office, I don't know where the blame should be laid here, probably a bit of both. They do not take this team seriously. And it's hard for me to take this team seriously when they are not building a squad that actually deserves real attention. Like no team, I wrote this for Backheeled on Sunday night in my winners and losers column. No team has benefited more from MLS in 2023 changing the playoff structure to allow 9 teams from each conference to make the playoffs. Because the fact that MLS has done that has allowed the Red Bulls to continue boasting about the only thing that they can boast about effectively, which is that they have made the playoffs for 15 straight years. They may, in fact, make the playoffs for 16 straight. They're 9th in the East right now. But they will also extend another streak this year, which is their MLS Cup drought, which extends forever. I think the Red Bulls had a terrible, terrible window because of the inactivity in that third DP spot. I can't take this team seriously.
Jeff, can you take them seriously from an identity standpoint? As in, what is their identity? Joe got to it a little bit in that one, but they're not exactly like a pressing team anymore. They're not exactly like a proactive possession team. Right. They do have an open DP slot that they didn't fill. It feels like they are not clear as to who they want to be or what they want to be.
Yeah, it's really uninspiring, isn't it? Because I think that you look at so many other teams. 8 years ago, the excuse was that they were a legacy team, right? And that legacy teams were really struggling to keep up with the new kids. The Galaxy fell off. How could the Galaxy fall off if it wasn't just some major league-wide trend, everyone thought, before realizing it was just the Galaxy got really bad at business suddenly as the league evolved, right? And then you look at, like, New England, Chicago, these other teams that had really struggled into the back half of the 2010s or the part of the 2020s, DC United, what up? So I think everyone had assumed that was most of it. Okay, and then the narrative sort of shifted to, well, the New York teams are feeder clubs. Like, unfortunately, this is the bet that they've gotten into. New York City is beholden to City Football Group. Well, then New York City has a really good window, actually. Like, they get, like, a DP who looks like he can immediately contribute and also be there for the next 5 years or so at a minimum, which is excellent business for a number 10. It looks like they are able to, like they look further along. Like I fully agree with Joe's past assessments that they have also been an unserious club in terms of operating for like competition in the league that they participate in, which I think should be a prerequisite for business. But I think that they had a much better window than the New York Red Bulls. And I don't really know what the Red Bulls' identity is at this point, because the Timo Werner thing feels now like an Emil Forsberg. It sours. It's new context that makes the Emil Forsberg move look a little less ambitious. I'll put it that way. Because right now it looks like they're kind of waiting for a Red Bull Football Group to say, here's our top famous cast-off that we don't really have a purpose for at Leipzig, that couldn't play at Salzburg. Do you want? Right? And like the thing is, it's not... I'm not like reporting anything new here, but I can confirm like what you've been reading about the Timo Werner talks. What it came down to is Timo Werner didn't want to take a pay cut. And like, get that money, that's fine. You only have so long in your career. And I think for him, especially at this point of a career, probably assesses and says like, I'm not getting raises from here on out because I think, big leagues that would give me raises have found out what my caliber is. So I'm going to have to earn less money. But when the option to have 1 year on that salary is still on the table, it's maybe more appealing than moving and taking less. What gets weird, though, is that it's the same owner. So, like, you could do something clever and loan the guy for a year, and then he's a free agent at the end of the next 12 months, and then you have to broker new terms, at which point he doesn't have that other contract in his hand that he's pointing to feverishly and saying, pay me this much money. And instead, they're just like, well, we couldn't get Timo, so there we go. That was our play.
It's ridiculous.
And it's just like, why are you just going to be like scouring RB Leipzig for guys who are 28 plus and are phasing out of the rotation of the Bundesliga team? Like it just like I don't really know how you could expect to be more competitive than chasing 7th, 8th, 9th in your conference every single year if you operate the way they do. And by the way, the only way you can actually even stay in the 7, 8, 9 contention is if you get every other decision right, including your academy development. And they're so fortunate that they have that, but they're doing such a disservice to that talent pipeline by not supporting them with high level, playoff caliber, MLS Cup caliber teammates. Like, it's really, really unfortunate to see.
Joe, I think that's where your categorization of them as unserious is probably pretty apt and pretty on the mark. So, the Red Bulls, it sounds like, leading contenders for worst window. Jeff, anybody else for you?
I'll throw in a commiseration for FC Dallas, who had to immediately punt on what they felt was a very exciting winter window and had to show the world that they didn't have that long of a conversation with Luciano Acosta about how much he actually wanted to stay in Major League Soccer. Yeah, I mean, like, it's a mess. And you look at after Lucho leaves, there's some kind of scrambling moves that come in that are just kind of like, see, we're busy, we're working on the next thing, whatever. But I think now all you've really done is take a first first division coach, Eric Quill, thrown him like a kind of impossible assignment to coach this number 10 who desperately wants to get back to South America, and now he leaves midway through that first season. And I don't know where you go from there from a chemistry. Maybe it's one of those things where you just do one of that, will that happen, sort of like Joss Whedon jokes, and everyone can chuckle about it and move forward, but it feels like it's a little more substantial than that. This was
gone
supposed
now?
to be.
He's gone now. That's the Joss Whedon joke.
Exactly, yeah. Right, exactly, yeah. So that just, like, there's just so many of these Joss Whedon jokes, but I think you're right, like, he's gone now, and then everyone has to look around and, like, kind of affirm. I can picture it.
Can you go a little bit more in detail on what you mean when you say that they didn't have maybe the length of conversation needed to understand what Lucho Acosta wanted? Like, what happens between spending the money to bring him in, to sign him from Cincinnati, to kind of build around him as their number 10, to a few months later, out the door he goes?
I wonder if it's the glow up from DC to Cincy set expectations of the grass is in fact always greener, and then you get to Frisco and bless your heart. It's just like it's a very different, like, this is not what I signed up for. And maybe it was better in Cincinnati after all, and I just didn't like the personnel I was working with. But I mean, there were opponents playing against him, and he was openly talking about how much he hated being there, and he was
like to those other players, you mean?
Yeah,
or just in general.
Which is like, you don't even need to get in the guy's head at that point. Right. So, like, there's just a certain point where the body language is all off too, and you know, the press releases are the worded differently, like, so either stock and standard, or like there's just a little less passion within them. I don't know. It just always looked like a very curious, like, you see it in other sports where it's like the journeyman or like not a journeyman yet, but like someone who was really important to one team and that just kind of roam around. I guess Brett Favre with the Jets or something, Vikings you pick, but like just kind of lingers around and wears a different jersey, and it looks really weird. And hopefully time will make us forget these memories, but those fans certainly won't forget the letdown. And I feel for FC Dallas fans, because I cannot imagine how much of a letdown it must be to see how quickly and abruptly that came to an end before it even really got started.
Yeah, the other pain point for Dallas is that they're now Minnesota United, just without the set piece stuff that works really well. The stat, and I don't have it in front of me because I'm a fraud. The stat is that Dallas, in like I think 6 of their last 7 games, or in all the games since Lucho but 1 since Lucho left, they have had 30-something% possession in their games. Now, that is a clear tactical choice from Eric Quill, and I actually think it's a really smart one. They've had some good results recently. They draw LAFC over the weekend. They've gotten some good performances. It seems like Lucho leaving has galvanized this group. The trade-off, though, for maybe making a playoff push in the West is that you just have to watch the most abysmal soccer possible. I guess that's just how it goes. Can I take us to DC? We've waited long enough. Taylor, we've made you wait long enough.
I don't know. Do you want the point for having the only correct answer? Because it is DC is the correct answer. So you both got points in the first round for suggesting that it was any team other than DC had the best window. Yes, if you'd like the point now, Joe, you may talk about DC United's window that was. Are you telling me Caden Clark isn't a franchise maker, a game changer, going to revolutionize this squad?
Yeah, he's not. So that's the only move that DC make this window is acquiring Caden Clark for $700,000 of real American cash currency.
$700,000.
Crazy.
So the way this went down is that DC United have a new coach, which we haven't really talked about, Rene Weiler. He came in, coached his first game against CF Montreal, the team that Caden Clark used to play for, and saw Caden Clark and was like, I want that guy. And so,
is that real? Is that really what happened, or is that just like the connecting of dots because they played each other and then DC signed him? Or did he really say?
As far as I understand it, that is what has happened here.
Wild.
And so DC United's front office, Ali Mackay, goes and gets that guy because that's what his new coach wants. And that is just not a good way of doing business. like forget that it's Caden Clark and that we have a pretty good pile of evidence that says he is a squad player in MLS and nothing more. It's just not how you want to sign anybody. Like, that's not good process for going out and building a roster that you can rely on in a long season. It's just not. It's a terrible way of doing business. And DC United, honestly, the reason why they're not my top choice, I think you can absolutely make a compelling argument they deserve to be top. They went out and spent real money in a U22 initiative spot on a mediocre to bad MLS player. And this is DC we're talking about. Like, they don't get the benefit of the doubt with these things. So you can make that argument. The reason why I had the Red Bulls as my top pick here is because they actually had a chance to do something this year, and they wasted it. DC are operating from a position where there's no hope for them this season. Like, they're all in for well, they're not, but it's all about next season and beyond for DC United. For the Red Bulls, it's about now, or at least it could be if you cared a little bit or wanted to do something. For DC, the expectation was already in the basement, and those do factor in for me on these sorts of things about best and worst window. But DC continued to be like the DC and CF Montreal are the teams that if I was, and I've been thinking about doing this, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud because someone else can do it. They'll probably do it better. I was thinking about doing like a hope rankings of MLS teams, of like which teams are most hopeful all the way down to which teams are the most hopeless. And honestly, I just can't decide if it should be DC United or CF Montreal that are at the bottom of that list. Like there is not hope for DC United. They are in that position for all the reasons that we've talked about many times before, and we'll almost certainly talk about again. I want to do it now, but we don't need to. DC, terrible window, don't understand what they're doing. In fact, I think we actually maybe all do understand that they're doing stuff that is just bad, straight up.
Yeah, and I was critical of their atmosphere, the supporter atmosphere on a Soccer 101 episode recently that I think supporters did not appreciate. And I think maybe I was speaking a little bit too bluntly, a little bit too broadly, because I don't put that atmosphere on the supporters. I think they're doing everything they can to keep the energy and the atmosphere going. It's very much to their credit that there continues to be people in the stands waving flags and playing drums and singing songs, because this team does not deserve that level of interest and enthusiasm. It feels like the Spirit have overtaken DC United as the team to watch and root for in our nation's capital, from a soccer perspective at least. So I think that's at least a silver lining positive. But I have a lot of sympathy for people who go to these games week in, week out, because it is pretty depressing across the board. I had DC United as having the worst window, though I think the argument for it being the Red Bulls and FC Dallas is pretty compelling as well. Nicely done to you both. Let's go to best win now. Let's do best signing, best general signing for whatever reason. Joe, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I'm going to be boring and quick. I think it's Son Heung-min. We don't really need to talk about it anymore. I have more nuance for the next category that we'll talk about, but I'll pass the mic to Jeff.
No, it's Son Heung-min. It's the signing that most changes the fate for your team immediately and also sets them up for success in the next couple of years. It checks every box. It's also going to be a good marketing boon, and it gives them a very fresh change from what had been a very well-rehearsed ideology with Giroud that ran through the Club World Cup, and now they've really changed how they play, and I think that that's going to make it even more difficult to defend, and teams will have to think about what they do when they come up against Rondello's side even more than usual. So, I think that they needed that sort of element as well for his final few months in the job. So, job well done.
If Inter Miami end up putting it all together, maybe they don't win Supporters Shield, but they end up winning MLS Cup, is there a chance that we're retroactively saying it's Rodrigo de Paul as the best signing of the window?
Yeah, that's well spotted. I could see it. I could definitely see it, because I think that a lot of what he's going to do is the sort of stuff that makes the Messi and Suarez end of the field work even better and work less hard, just in terms of ground coverage, in terms of ball progression, in terms of being a viable link from the defense to the attack, so Messi doesn't have to run all the way to the defensive third anymore. I think absolutely there is, and he's shown up for it. He's looked like he is taking it very seriously, which is all you can really ask for. I'm not surprised by that necessarily, just given his reputation, his character. But it's always one of those things where the move across the Atlantic has done weirder things to as good of players. So good to see that is not the case for him. It absolutely could be, and I think that it is maybe a distant the other direction, second best, where it's I think that there is a bit of a gulf then from every other one, but I will agree with you as I think about this. I think the DePaul signing is much closer to the Son Heung-min side of this ranking than it is the number 3 through however many players made moves this window.
Yeah, if we're looking at best win now moves, right, sort of if we both agree that Son is kind of the signing of the summer, best win now moves, I have Son and DePaul as my top two. Miami are very much a contender, right? Shield is getting dicey. If they'd beaten DC over the weekend with a rotated squad, that would have been really good for them. They've got games in hand, but they got a lot of games to play, and it seems like that is maybe not going to happen, but it's not totally off the table. Either way, they are in contention for multiple trophies at this stage. Leagues Cup's on the table, MLS Cup's on the table, and the Shield is still on the table in one way or another. DePaul is an elite player in his spot in this league. We've already seen that across his minutes, and he does seem to care. He's on my list for best win now signing. I have 3 other win now signing options. Taylor, can I do them now, or do we need to take a break? Where do I fall?
Let's take a break, because I know that you also wanted to get your third best signing overall, Caden Clark. You wanted 5 or 10 more minutes on him. So let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk.
Got it.
Maybe 15 minutes about Caden Clark. I'm not sure. And then we'll do some other categories. Back very soon. Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show. We've done best signing. It was Son. That was consensus. Let's talk best win now signings. Joe, you've gone Son there. You've gone Rodrigo de Paul. Who else did you have? I believe you had 3 plus Caden Clark.
Yeah. Caden Clark will do next, and I'll make sure I go really long and in depth on that. I have three other noms. One of which we mentioned already, which is Brenner. I think he is a great ad for Cincy for reasons we've already discussed. He's produced in this league before. I think he's going to be happier in Cincinnati now than he was before as well, because he's gone over and done the Europe thing and maybe realized that it's not necessarily like going to transform every part of my life. Now I can come back to Cincy and be in a place where I can be comfortable and go out there and actually play games. My other 2 nominations. Wissam Abu Ali for the Columbus Crew, who debuted over the weekend, their DP number 9, brought in from Al Ali. Yes, that one, not that one. He looked a little rusty, looked like he hadn't played since the Club World Cup, which is true. But he is someone who you could even see some of his skill flashing through in limited moments in that loss to the Revs. The Crew need a boost. Like, they've been struggling a little bit. Darlington Nagbe's been out injured. They've fallen down the Eastern Conference table a little bit. The East is a buzzsaw. But the Crew have not been playing their best ball, and integrating a DP9 into this team, I think, has all of the upside that we always talked about it having when we were talking about the Crew needing one more piece. I like that they got Abu Ali over the line. I like that he's now basically been ready and is starting to be integrated into this team. I think that ups the Crew's ceiling. My last move is probably the most under-the-radar one of this bunch, although we do have a separate under-the-radar category coming later. Charlotte selling Adilson Malanda to Middlesbrough for $8 million and still getting to keep him for the rest of the season. The Rapids could not do that last year with Moise Bambito, who is the other center back in recent years who's moved for big money. I believe this Malanda deal is now the record deal for an outgoing center back in Major League Soccer, where it was Bambito last season with the Rapids, going over to Nice and Liga. Now it's Malanda. The Rapids couldn't keep Bambito through the end of the season. They couldn't get that loan deal agreed. They couldn't get him. RSL couldn't do this last year with Andres Gomez, and they sort of crumbled after that move happened. Minnesota United, it doesn't sound like, are going to be able to do this with Tani Oluwaseyi this year to Villarreal. He's going to go. It seems like his performance against RSL was the last we're going to see of him for Minnesota United. That Zoran Cornetta and this front office agreed with Malanda that, hey, we're going to help facilitate this move for you, but also we need you to stick out this season with us, and that Middlesbrough were on board with that. You don't see that happen, like, hardly ever in MLS, as I've tried to outline. Malanda is a really good player. I don't think Charlotte are going to make it out of the buzzsaw that is the Eastern Conference, but I definitely don't think they were going to make it out if they didn't keep their best center back, and that they did that while also doing some other fun, smart business this summer. I really, really like that move. It at least keeps the door open for Charlotte in a way that I don't think it would have been open should Malanda have left right away in the summer window. So that they got real cash for him, huge for them, and that they actually keep a really good player, also huge for them.
So what were your 3? Excuse me. It was Wissam Abu Ali. It was
Brenner and Adilson Malanda. Yep.
Oh, Brenner. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Where is Paxton Aronson on your superlative rankings?
He's not in this category because I don't think the Rapids are going to win anything this year.
Yeah, but he's on my list. He's to come.
So Jeff's got something on him. I just don't think I think you downgrade going from Georgie to Aronson, first of all. I think Aronson could be... He looked really good against the Galaxy. Granted, that was a very rotated Galaxy team, but he looked bright, he looked fun, he looked energetic, so early returns are good, although I want to have a huge caveat on that because of the opposition. But I just don't think the Rapids have the tools to do it right now.
So, yeah, really quick here. To get my best win now, Thomas Muller, because I think that he is a literal, possible win now option where he will come in and play in a spot that was vacated when Ryan Gold was injured and when Pedro Vite was sold. So, you have kind of the hole for him to operate in. I think that he will pick up kind of loose change goals that were otherwise going unseen, and I think that he can still do that, especially against MLS defenses. But I actually would like to spend a little bit more time because I realized, after the break, I think I didn't pick the right worst window because I think that that's Minnesota United. And I haven't seen that take anywhere, and I need to get that out there. I think that there's 2 different ways that you can fail a transfer window. One is inactivity, but I'm one of those clever yucksters who think sometimes the best business is no business because, again, trust the guys you got there. The other one is the one where you want to show that you're really good at business, so you wait until the end of the window to do everything. And it looked so chaotic and so scattershot and so unplanned and unprepared and frankly unserious that I really dislike how Minnesota United operated in this window when they've never had more at stake in a summer transfer window, because they have never been a viable MLS Cup contender until 2025. Like a genuine, like, tier 1 or tier 2 of frontrunners, MLS Cup hopeful. LAFC and Vancouver, two of their rivals in the West, reinforced from Tottenham and Bayern. Again, not everyone can spend that way, but if Vancouver can get someone from Bayern Munich, yeah, you can probably find a way to get guys from big clubs. Okay, so if that's not how you're going to operate, San Diego and Seattle kind of leaned into what was already working. San Diego brought in more young bodies, players who can come in and, like, you know, kind of add to the rotation, that sort of thing, but they didn't really unsettle what was working at the top. Seattle obviously stood kind of pat. Snyder Purnell already scored as a homegrown signing, but, like, that's just makes the fans feel good sort of business, right? And that's sort of things that you're not signing homegrowns in the summer window to look clever and score high on, like, a grade the summer window report card, right? Minnesota, they got a new number 6 who is still learning the position, has played defensive midfield for exactly 1 season for Hibs in Scotland, and granted did very well. His numbers look like he could actually project and stick around as a starting level number 6, so I'm well there. But they brought him in at the very end of the window, and he's still learning it. They brought in a number 8, Dominic Fritz, who has never left Austria before in his mid-20s. The talent evaluators that I've spoken with kind of did that, like, sort of thing with their voices when I asked if he would actually be an upgrade or even a lateral move from Robin Lod, who has been way behind it this year. I don't know what's going on, if it's just like losing a step or if it's something with his head, but he has been much less effective than he had been the 5 previous seasons from 2020 onward, and that's something that they've certainly been feeling in the final third, just a very different sort of Robin Lod there. You've got Will Trapp and Owen Jean, who they had signed and were given good minutes, and that I thought was looking pretty good, you know, young French midfielder. You brought in then some kind of scratchy lottery tickets, a 20-year-old midfield loanee who's not even a Paraguay youth international, Alexis Farinha, who you're going to need to play in order to inform a decision, so that shakes up your rotation. You've got a USL Championship forward who's young. I think that's good. Like, sign the best players in the USL, I get that, but if that's your make weight for Tani Oluwaseyi leaving, like, you're so much worse off at striker behind Kelvin Yeboah than you used to be. And then you didn't sign a right back. And that would have allowed you to bring Bongi Longwane up into a striker role. You also got rid of Sangbin Jung. So, like, you're very thin in really crucial areas here, and you did all of your business at the end where they can't really integrate. Meanwhile, you had the head coach, Eric Ramsey, in the media locally saying, like, I want players back in July. And so it also looks like the coach and the CSO GM have very different priorities almost for how to operate in the market, of like wait until the last minute for best opportunity versus no, we just need to help this title caliber team get better. And Adrian Heath used to do that all the time. The thing is, Adrian Heath was also the GM, so he was speaking to ownership. He wasn't speaking to his peer, which just awful look. Awful look. This is a team that if they were going to bolster their chances of a run this year, they needed to sustain a certain level of standard of talent and improve it immediately, not get a bunch of like hypothetical, we'll see if they come off, speculative, like young buy-in, maybe we'll flip them and sell options. Like, this just wasn't that time. It was like a lack of recognition of the opportunity, and I think it could come back and cost them and make them a little more susceptible in the Western Conference, especially after LAFC and Vancouver got better.
Interesting. Yeah, I disagree with like almost everything you said, Jeff.
Sure.
But I your perspective is valuable here. Like, you're closer to Minnesota United than I am. And I like that you recognized and pointed this out, that LAFC and Vancouver made big moves and Minnesota United did not. The distinction I would make is that Minnesota United aren't going to be that team. And that in 2025, you don't have to be the team that makes big, splashy headline moves to win. Like, the Philadelphia Union do the opposite of that. Like, the Union Minnesota United are operating like the Philadelphia Union, is effectively what I want to say when it comes to their first team roster. And the Philadelphia Union are leading the Shield race. Like, I don't think the Loons had to go out there and spend big. Lots of teams had signings come in at the end of the window. Like, that is the nature of the MLS transfer window closing a week to 2 weeks before all of the other major windows in the European side of things. I just don't blame Minnesota for getting these deals over the line late when they actually got deals over the line. Yeah, you can quibble about, are these guys going to hit? Like, I don't know. I'll be transparent. Other than Mamadou Dieng, that USL Championship striker, who I really like, by the way. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you do too. Other than Dieng, like, I've never seen any of these dudes play before, so I have no clue if they're good. But one thing I can say about Minnesota is that since the new leadership has come in, they have nailed almost every signing. Like, that they added 4 players in this window means that I don't yet have a reason to doubt that they're going to miss the signing. Yes, I would love to be able to go through and watch these players. I don't have the ability to do that with some of these guys. So apologies on that front. I just don't see how this Minnesota window gets anywhere close to the worst window. The argument that I am somewhat willing to entertain is that you lose Tani and you don't get him to stick around. You're a victim of the timing of the MLS transfer window and the timing of the calendar, more specifically because other teams want to buy in the summer, and you also want to buy in the summer, but you don't have all the buying power. That the timing is this way, where the summer window when everybody's doing stuff comes towards the end of your season. That came back to bite Minnesota. Like,
sure,
I totally agree. The downgrade on Tani is very, very real, but that's like the only argument that I can hear here.
The thing is, though, like every team knows that. It's like teams that complain about international windows. It's they're on the calendar for 4 years at a time, guys. Like, you know that this is how it's going to have to be. If you think there's a chance Tani Olashey is leaving this summer, bring in a viable backup striker. Bring up a Musovski type, bring up a Christian Ramirez type, like Columbus did a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying they needed Sung Hyung Min. Like, what they needed were guys who could come in and do what Julian Gressel has done since arriving at the end of the primary window and immediately integrate into the core and make it better. This is a team that needed veterans, winners, like these sorts of players.
You wanted them to sign Brenner, and they signed Mamadou Dieng. Like that's
a good way to put it.
Yeah,
I'm
sympathetic
to that. Lot of this sort of like, we'll see how it goes, and it'll look clever if it comes off. But I think that they leave this window worse than they were going into it, or worse than they were going into the final week of it.
I think that is possible. Yes.
And I don't know if any other contender made that gamble. That's the other thing. I don't know if any of the other contenders were gambling that hard with their futures or their present.
I'm just pretty much willing to chalk off the Tani thing as a symptom of the MLS transfer timing, like in the current schedule. I went through that list of Bombito and Gomez and all these other guys that haven't got to stuck around through the summer. These MLS teams have to sell something. Like, I actually think Minnesota, assuming they don't sell Joaquin Pereira, despite an $8 million bid from Trabzonspor in Turkey. I'm sure I nailed that pronunciation, Taylor. I'm sure you're really proud of me.
Sounded like it did.
Yes, I just try to say them really fast and hope that nobody notices if I've done it wrong. That they turned down the bid for Pereira and accepted the Tani bid, I think is absolutely the right way to go. If you have to pick one, and I'd imagine
of the two,
you kind of have to sell at least one of those dudes when you're getting $7-8 million bids. You keep Pereira and you sell Tani. I think that's like a no-brainer, as good as Tani has been. I don't know, man. I'm still really high on Minnesota and their ceiling this year. I think they still have a legit chance to win MLS Cup, and I think they also established themselves better for the future, both because you've established yourself in the transfer market with the Tani move and you've added pieces. We'll see. We'll see what this looks like. I don't expect them to win MLS Cup, but I think they still got a shot. So
I like how they would match up against a lot of teams in the East. I don't like how they match up anymore against a couple of the top teams in the West. That's where
time will tell. Ooh.
So, having talked about Minnesota for, I believe, 7 hours straight, where are we now?
Sorry, that was our Caden Clark time. My bad, Jeff. That's my fault, dude.
We're in the best for the future business.
Yeah.
I think.
All right. And is it just Minnesota and we can move on?
Oh, no, definitely not. I'll run through my list. I think Georgie and Jose Cifuentes, if we can package them together for Toronto, are my picks here. We did a bit on Toronto already, but I didn't expect them to be this active and that they cleared space and added like legit proven MLS star level talent. It's awesome. Like it is really, really good business. My other two nominations for best for the future signing are both strikers. One is Milan Olowski for the Philadelphia Union, who is very much part of the succession planning that Ernst Tanner has done for a potential exit for Ty Baribo and Mikel Ure. They're two sort of highest profile strikers. They brought in Bruno Damiani back in the winter. Now they're bringing Olowski. That could very well be the starting pairing next year, and I don't really think the Union are going to miss a beat on that. So that's clever work from Philly. And then Archie Goodwin for Charlotte. I'm a big fan of a lot of Charlotte's business this window. I mentioned Malanda. Archie Goodwin is a 20-year-old Australian striker. Last year in the A-League, he shared the Golden Boot and was the Young Player of the Year. Scored 13 goals in 26 games. This is Charlotte keeping that striker carousel going. Like they sell Pat Ajiman for $8 million, which is a phenomenal bit of business. Then Iran Tokolamati has been even better in that spot as a young U22 initiative player. And they're probably not going to keep him forever. Maybe they keep him for the next year. And then you get Archie Goodwin and just do this thing over and over again. This is the window where Charlotte established themselves as a real player in the transfer market, and Goodwin coming in is the next piece of that puzzle. I don't know if he's going to hit like Tokolamati. He probably won't. Just odds dictate that he won't. But they're clearly they have clear designs on how they want to use these different roster mechanisms, and I think it is just brilliant business from Charlotte. So he's a best for the future signing nominee for me as well.
All right. Jeff, any more for you?
I really like how the Colorado Rapids did this window. I like it a lot, and it's very Colorado Rapids business. It's like when I say best and worst, I don't look at it as like who had the best move, who had the worst move. It's who helped their case, who hurt their case most. It's relative, right? Like, so like bad teams getting bad aren't interesting to me. But it's interesting to me when a team has to lose its lead center back, Tito Awaziem, early in the window for personal reasons, and then lose their best attacking player, Georgi Mihailovic, for financial money reasons, and still has to like figure out how can we stay in the playoff push this year and also get on a growth curve for the future. And I have no idea what kind of player Paxton Aronson's going to be as the final article, right? Like, it's still so much of his game that looks so like, you could do this, you could do that, you could do that with it. But I do know that he has a better chance of reaching the positive final result of like what kind of player he could be with 2,400 minutes or more a year in Colorado than less than 1,000 at Eintracht Frankfurt. So that's good. I think that he's looking probably at what's working for Diego Luna in the eyes of Mauricio Pochettino, and what hasn't been working for other players who are Yanks abroad, who are struggling to get minutes in big clubs. Like, it was something that he had said in the press conference where it was just like the project intrigued me, where I knew that I could maybe play in spots that would be harder for me to get to in Europe. And like, that's correct and that's fair to assess. So opportunistic. I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that he'd be back in MLS this soon at all. But I think that they've got half a year now to figure out if they can build around him or if they can build with him as one of the crucial supporting pieces. Like, they'd kind of hoped, I guess, Kevin Cabral would be more than a Georgie. And if that's the case, I think that he'll be better than Kevin Cabral, which is like the hottest take of the year. But there's also some of the other stuff here that I really like about them. Left back has always been kind of like Jackson Travis, when he recovered from his surgery, did quite well, but then Sam Vines has also been getting minutes. I like Rafael Santos, who I think was doing some good defensive left back work under Oscar Pereja, but was just kind of struggling to get regular starts. So I think that that's a good pickup. And then there are just some like Rob Holding. Let's see what he's got in the legs. But we've got a short-term deal, so that's good for the future. We're not too riddled by that contract. And then there are just a couple of other along with purchase for Noah Cobb, homegrown for Atlanta United. Good defensive cover, another homegrown defender for Atlanta United to leave this window. They had a very bad window as well. But again, bad teams getting worse aren't as interesting to me. And then Lucas Harrington, U20 Australia international, 18-year-old center back. Like, cool. Sure. Let's see. Let's see how you help his development and these sorts of things. Young defenders still have a lot of room to grow, and you can do that in Major League Soccer, and we've seen it with like Mamadou Fall in recent years as well. So like, maybe it can be a case like that, or maybe it's just like, cheap defensive cover. We don't know yet, but I think that was a very good window to not lower the floor too much. They also took a flyer on another winger from Colombia, Alexis Manyoma. Looked good. I don't know. Good window.
If we were going to try to build consensus, though, which team do you think had the best for the future signings? Seems like Toronto, maybe, with the work they did to kind of get into contention.
I think Toronto laid better groundwork than anybody, and I think even if you factor in expectations, they are just so clearly the best for this category.
They parted so many clouds from their sky right now. So, yeah.
Vape clouds at that.
Nice.
Hey.
Thank you. I try. All right, let's go to best under the radar signing, shall we? Joe, you want to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, I'll do my two, and I'll go quick here. Mamadou Dieng, we already mentioned, Minnesota United signing him, led the USL Championship in XG over the last 2 seasons. Somebody who I've watched some, we've covered it backheeled some in detail. Really athletically gifted, is already an MLS level athlete at 21, and man, I don't know. I think the Minnesota United system is perfect for someone of his profile that is maybe more athletic than polished at this stage. You don't need to be polished to play for Minnesota United up top. So I'm not sure that it's going to be too long before we see him having some success for them. The other pick for me is Ronaldo Vieira, who I think I mentioned maybe last week for San Jose.
Yeah.
All right. Ball winner in midfield, which is exactly what San Jose need. He debuted in a win over the Houston Dynamo over the weekend.
Yes.
Played the last half, I think, of that game, and looked pretty good. He didn't like blow me away, but he looked solid in the double pivot for Bruce Arena. And to zoom out from him, because he does fit a huge need in this San Jose team as a ball winner. They've been leaky defensively. Bruce Arena has just like trotted out all the attacking players, and it's been awesome this year to watch, but it has left them clearly vulnerable defensively. They need personnel upgrades, and Vieira is one of those players. To zoom out from him, Hernan Lopez is gone for San Jose, which is a really, really good thing, despite Michele Giannone's undying love for Hernan Lopez on this show. He just wasn't very good. And so I think that's a huge part of a really good window for San Jose, like a subtly good window. He's on loan to Argentina with an option to buy down there. Don't expect him to be back. They moved Amal Pellegrino to San Diego and got some cap relief there. He was not a fit for this Bruce Arena team. And then they added Vieira. So they got top-end roster flexibility for the winter with that open DP spot from Lopez moving on. They just added a straight-up... I think Vieira will be a starter in midfield. Either way, they added a key piece in midfield, and they created some cap space. It's just a great window. Like, it's subtle. It's not super flashy. It's not as if San Jose are really a title threat this season. Could they be next season in a West that feels pretty open? I don't know, man. Maybe. It kind of feels like they are close to joining that club of teams I mentioned earlier with the Galaxy, with Cincy, with Minnesota United, of teams that have gone from really crappy to really scary in about 3 or 4 transfer windows. It feels like this team is on the way to that.
Yeah. And I think that the Vieira addition also kind of addresses the one key piece that they weren't able to get from the winter when Carlos Carrizo left, right? And so it's just like it looks more complete. Like we talked about it last week after they lost to San Diego, but like I completely agree with you. I think that they're ahead of schedule, and I think it's really impressive to see. I'd also listed Sifu there just in case no one mentioned Cifuentes, but I guess that wasn't as under the radar as I thought. I guess the radar is picking up things quite well, and we don't need to get it tuned up.
Ping, ping.
One thing only.
Jeff, what about best intra-league move then for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple we've talked about. It's probably Georgie. Like, there just weren't a lot of really big intra-league moves that really intrigued me. Like, there was some good shuffling. Like, I really like the Joel Waterman to fortify Chicago's defense.
Yep.
I like Minnesota recouping what they had initially spent on Sang Bin Jung, right? But, like,
yeah.
I think Georgie is the one that probably is going to have the most production at their new home. And that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, Georgie is the right answer here. DeAndre Yedlin is an honorable mention for me for RSL. I like the pickup. He gives them real tactical flexibility in addition to the obvious leadership stuff. RSL have been one of the, I think, 6 or 8 youngest teams in MLS this season. They're bringing through Xavier Gozo and Diego Luna, and you just can't not like having DeAndre Yedlin in and around those guys. Like, that's just a huge win. But then the on-field side of things, Yedlin can play as a third center back in a 3 that Pablo Mastroeni likes to use, or he can play as a wide, sort of width provider on that right side. He's done both of those jobs at his last 2 clubs in MLS. He'll do both in Salt Lake. I really like the options that he gives Mastroeni. But yeah, Georgie is the right answer here. No, Jeff, you're right about the fact that there weren't a ton of high profile, like really pricey moves other than the Georgie one, like intra-league.
Right.
Like he was the one. There were others on the table. I can say that with 100% certainty. Like there were others that were really being discussed and like that were being explored in a serious way. And for me, a huge win of the summer, and maybe my favorite thing that happened this whole summer, was MLS teams proving that they are willing to do these intra-league cash trade deals. Like that it wasn't just a blip in the winter with Evander and Lucho and oh, that's great timing with this rule because we have 2 superstars that are really unhappy at their clubs, and those guys are going to move, and we're going to talk about how great this mechanism is, and then it doesn't really happen with high-profile guys beyond that. No, teams are willing to drop cash on some of these guys. Georgie is proof in the pudding of that fact. There will be more, whether that's in the winter, whether that's next summer, but this summer's highlight for me in the MLS transfer window is that teams showed they're willing to shell out real cash more than maybe you think to sign proven players. I love that. I love that trend, and Georgie embodies it.
And our final category, a controversial one, most likely to regret signing, like player that a club will end up most resenting, most falling out with, most trying to get rid
Clark,
of.
Point please. Point please. Point please.
Yeah, that's on mine too, actually.
Point
Why
please,
Taylor. Why is he on both of yours?
Joe, do you want to go first or should I?
Did we already do this, right?
Like basically just like fine.
He's not very good, and
yeah.
No, but like here's what's worrying me about Caden Clark here is like because Caden was like let's just like
Jeff's dropping Caden now. All right.
Reset the clock here. Yeah, I guess.
Best friend of Jeff Ruder, Cade Clark.
He's from Minnesota as well. I guess we have strong opinions about each other. No, I think that the thing with Caden Clark, though, is that 2020, he really broke out in a massive way. He had a few worldies with the New York Red Bulls and looked like he was going to be, just like this star number 10, whatever. And I think that over time, we found that more time on the ball isn't his forte, but I'm not necessarily sure he agrees with the consensus assessment of his game, right? He seems like someone who wants to continually prove that he can be, and that's admirable. Like, that's good. Like, if you think that you're getting miscast, then prove him wrong. Like, that's great. That's fine. What's concerning me, though, is how often now we've already seen Caden Clark move. Like, every year since then, every single year, at least one club move, if not two some years. He's already on his fourth MLS team at age 22. That's weird. I don't really know if he's going to get those developmental steps that he seems to need to be to reach the version of himself that he wants to play as with DC United. So that's a concern. I was talking about with some friends last week where it's just like his career is reminding me of someone and I can't quite figure out whom. And right away, one of my friends was like Juan Agudelo. And I can kind of see it in the sense that, like, you know, different roles, obviously, like Swagudelo was its own little movement, right? And he was playing in a very different way. But a lot of it was built around the idea that this kid has sauce. And I'd like to see him display more of it and more consistently chip in with the goals and the assists and that sort of thing. And a lot of club moves, a lot of, if I'm not the star man, I want out. And I hope it's not that trajectory because, you know, like Juan Agudelo has had a fine career. He's still playing professional soccer last I checked. So, like, that is an achievement in its own right, but didn't quite reach the heights that a lot of us, San Antonio FC, by the way, yes,
Shout out.
at age 32. But, like, there's still just, like, the move with Agudelo within his first 5 years, he had played for 5 clubs as well. And just never really found that footing by the time he got to New England in 2015 the second time. It was just a little late for him to kind of tap into that bag of tricks, and then he was just kind of who he was. And I hope that he, as another young player, there are a lot of these young American players that want to work into, if not Pochettino's plans for 26, see themselves as kind of like the future for 30 and beyond in these playmaking roles, and they're struggling to get minutes. It's why you see Paxton Anderson come back, because MLS is one of the few leagues that will trust domestic playmakers. I don't know, $700,000 outlay. I think that you can get more sure things for that than Caden Clark.
Yep. Yeah. Clark is on my list. He's not really my actual answer to this question. I think there's another better answer.
You just wanted to hurt me. Thanks, Joe.
No, I just thought we were all on board with that. I also thought we'd already talked about it, so I didn't know we were going to do more. Inter Miami trading Drake Callender away is my actual answer to this category. I think that is the answer. I don't even think it's close. They traded Drake Callender to Charlotte for allocation money. Charlotte now, by the way, it seems like this means Christian Kalina is going to be out the door in the winter because otherwise I just cannot fathom why you do this deal. Kalina was goalkeeper of the year last season. He's been very good for Charlotte. We're a little odd there, but I like Drake Callender as a player. So to focus on Miami for a second, whenever you have the chance to just dump your best goalkeeper to a conference rival for a good but not as good of a return as you would actually get from the dude on the field, to keep one of Messi's pals, who is 39 years old and incredibly erratic, you just have to do it. Like, you just have to beg somebody to take this guy off your hands. This makes no sense. Like, Oscar Ustari is a worse goalkeeper than Drake Callender. The only way it makes sense is if this is Messi power play, in which case, you do whatever you have to do to keep Messi happy. I thought Messi liked winning soccer games, maybe more than most things. Drake Callender was a top 8, I think, goalkeeper in MLS last year based off of goals saved above expected. He has been very, very reliable for a club that has been anything but that defensively forever. This makes no sense. Like, it is incredibly foolish, and I don't understand how Miami are not already regretting this. This has to come from Messi and just their comfort having all of Messi's guys and all the important roles. But it's just a blatant talent ID mess up on Lionel Messi, the GM's part here. Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
Jeff, any concerns for Inter Miami letting Drake Callender go, or do you see the total logic in getting rid of their one-time starter to keep Lionel Messi happy?
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of the issue that I have with it is the just the simple, like, did you actually check with the guy if he was good with it? Which I think now is, like, so mandatory for American soccer moves. Like, the NWSL made it, like, capital M mandatory, right? By saying, like, players can't move without signing off on these deals. But, like, when Tom reported... again, Bogert, not Booger, reported that was one of my favorite subplots of the summer. Was the
very good.
Yeah, that someone impersonating Tom Bogert with Tom Booger, and like some of them were so plausible, and then some of them were like Peter Vermees is interviewing. I'm trying to remember where it was, but like there were some that were just
LAFC.
So good. Yeah. LAFC, that's right. That he's in early talks to take over for Steve Cherundolo, which is just like, it was excellent. So thank you, whoever runs Tom Booger. I'm sure you listen to the show. But it sounded like Drake Callender was not roped into the conversations of do you want to go and do you want to go here, and that's not great operating procedure whatsoever. It just, again, like I know we've talked about in the past about other signings, I just kind of worry about like will eventually the reputation of how Miami moves and how they just kind of like bin players, whatever, is that going to come back and bite them at some point? And maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I don't know, but maybe it will.
All right, well, there we have it. Not as much DC United dislike as I expected, but still plenty to go around. Thank you both for that and for all of your answers today. Jeff Reuter, lovely work by you, my friend.
Thank you.
And MLS transfer win Joe Lowry, the same to you.
Lo, we have crafted a good show today. Thanks, guys.
Lovely work by you both. I look forward to more MLS chat next week. For now, hope you all are having a lovely week. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you very soon.